looks like, as expected, HARALD was a traitor to elbaf. Hello, how's it going everyone? We have another great chapter of One Piece this week. But before we begin, make sure to like the video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you. Now without further ado, let's get right into it. First, of course, we have the cover story for this week, and in this week's installment, we see that Ulti, and by extension, Page 1, are going to become Yamato's followers, and most likely be the first members of Yamato's own version of the 9 Scabbards, as a lot of people might have already predicted would happen. Now let's move on to the main chapter. We start off this week's chapter by continuing where we left off at the end of the last one, with the Straw Hats encounter with Gunko. We see that the Straw Hats immediately put 2 and 2 together and figure out that Gunko is one of the human intruders that the castle guards told them about. Although Gunko takes great offense to being referred to as human. We also have an interesting scene here where Gunko appears to tip her cap to Brook as some sort of signal, although Brook seems to be confused by that. Either that or it's because she recognizes that he's the Soul King and she's a fan of his music, as we already know. Gunko then declares that they are gods, which is interesting because as we know, based on Gunko's introduction box in chapter 1137, she does not seem to be a world noble. So I am curious just why she seems to believe that she is a god. After which the Straw Hats and Kowloon question her about what they are trying to do by kidnapping the children. Gunko tells Kowloon to watch the way he speaks to her, and then starts explaining to them that they are planning to take the kids to the Holy Land. And while she is explaining that, we get some panels showing us that Franky and the gang have taken care of the dream monster that attacked them. After which, Jinbei and Usopp start questioning whether Gunko is a celestial dragon, but then Brook speculates that she might be a holy knight, and Gunko confirms his speculation, after which Usopp questions whether they are kidnapping the kids to turn them into slaves. At which point, one of Gunko's arrows start approaching him. Nami then gets angry at the thought of the kids being turned into slaves and summons Zeus, and then uses Zeus to fire off an attack at Gunko. She calls this attack the Thunder Shark Tempo, but then Gunko uses an arrow to redirect the attack back at Nami. She tries to run away from her own attack, but it ends up hitting. Or so it seems, but in reality, she got behind Brook and he gets hit by the attack instead. And just like what we saw back on Whole Cake Island, Brook is unaffected by lightning attacks, so he is fine. And while all this is going on, Gunko starts explaining about how they, as in the Holy Knights I guess, thought that the world as they know it will cease to exist one day. But then humans like the people of Ohara and Vegapunk found out about the destruction of the world and tried to warn the people about it. And as she is saying this stuff, Usopp attacks her. But then both him and the rest of the Straw Hats are taken aback by how effective the attack was, blowing away half of Gunko's body. And Usopp apologizes, saying that he did not mean to do that. But then we see that Gunko can reform her body, so she most likely has a special paramecia just like Katakuri. Although I already kind of predicted that based on the panel when her power was first introduced, but it's good to have confirmation I guess. After reforming herself, Gunko continues her explanation, saying that due to the actions of Vegapunk, the countdown towards a great world war has begun, and that whichever side the giants decide to take will have a massive impact on the wall. And that's why they, as in the world government, are trying to get the giants of Elbaf to take their side in the wall by any means necessary. And as she is saying this, we get a scene of the giant warrior pirates fighting against the dream monsters, as well as a scene of Loki and Luffy lying down after eating too much, after which Nami says that there is no way that such a war will break out, and Jinbei calls the knights cowardly for trying to take the children hostage in order to force the giants to join them. To which Gunko says that she is just following orders, but she personally considers the lives of some random children to be trash, and that she doesn't really understand the concept of taking hostages. And at this point, one of the Straw Hats, probably Usopp, questions her sanity. Kowloon then tries to fight Gunko, but he immediately gets caught by one of her arrows. And then Jinbei and Brook also prepare to attack her, but she then uses her arrows to make them attack each other. She then kicks Nami away. Usopp then tries to attack her again, but she dodges it and then knees him in the face. We then cut over to Killingham, who we see has beaten up the Principal Tusk and has taken over the Walrus School. We also see that while beating up Tusk, he uses his powers to manifest a corner of some sort of structure and then rams Tusk's head into it. We also see that he has rendered Anje unable to move by slumbertizing her body, as he refers to it. He then tells Somers, who he has been talking to on a Denden Mushi this whole time, to speak into the transponder pill bug in order to broadcast some sort of message all across Elbaf through it. But Somers tells him to wait a second because as we see, he is busy dealing with Saul. And we see that Somers seems to have recognized Saul as the Vice Admiral that was supposed to have died at Ohara. And we also see that Saul has apparently hidden Robin and Chopper in his hair because he wants them to be able to rescue the children after he gets taken out. After saying that, he falls forward into the thorns created by Summers, and Summers likes what he sees. At this point, we get a heartbreaking scene of Robin cringing in pain, witnessing what is happening to Saul. And honestly, this must be so devastating for her. Finally being able to reunite with Saul after over 20 years, and then this happens to him just a few hours later. After that, we get a monologue from Summers, ridiculing the idea of a school and a library being on Elbaf, since they are supposed to be warriors. And at this point, we finally get a confirmation that Harald was in fact a traitor to Elbaf, and was apparently planning on having the giants of Elbaf serve the world government as mercenaries. And honestly, with this revelation, I would not be surprised if he was already aware of what sort of person Mother Carmel was and was choosing to ignore it. Or maybe he was even working with her. Because thinking about it, it doesn't really make sense that Mother Carmel was apparently able to kidnap some children from Elbaf and hand them over to the world government without anybody knowing about it. So it's possible that maybe Harald was in fact working with her. But according to Summers, Harald somehow screwed up the plan, and with that the chapter ends. All in all, this was a great chapter of One Piece, where we got some great insight into Gunko's character, as well as finding out that the world government is anticipating a great war and has started making preparations for it, and that the reason they are trying to kidnap the giant children is to force the giants of Elbaf to take their side during the war. We also got a really heartbreaking scene of Robin once again witnessing the suffering of one of her loved ones. And finally, we got the long-awaited confirmation that Harald was in fact a traitor who was planning to sell Elbaf off to the world government. And I am also really curious to see just how it is that he screwed up, according to Summers anyway. And with that, I guess I will see you whenever the next chapter comes out. Once again, make sure to like the video and subscribe to my channel. Bye bye.